The social introvert. Introversion isn't about hating people. It's about energy. Social interaction drains introverts. Solitude recharges them. That's the whole thing. The social introvert is the most common type. They don't avoid people, they avoid large groups. Put them one-on-one with someone they trust, and they're completely present, warm, engaged. The conversation goes deep. The problem is the crowd, the party, the networking event. Not because they're afraid, but because it costs more energy than it gives back. So they leave early, they cancel plans, they say no more than they say yes. And people call them antisocial, cold, hard to get close to. Here's what's actually happening. They're protecting their energy. They know exactly how much they have, and they spend it carefully. They're not closed off, they're selective. And to the right people, they're some of the most present, loyal, and deeply attentive people you'll ever meet. The thinking introvert. The thinking introvert looks like they're somewhere else, and honestly, part of them is. Their mind is always running in the background, analyzing, reflecting, processing things that happen, things that might happen, ideas that just arrived uninvited. You can be talking to them directly, and they're still half inside their own head. This isn't rudeness, it's how they're built. What they're hiding is depth, an inner world so active that the surface can barely contain it. Small talk bores them not because they're arrogant, but because it can't reach them where they actually live. Ask them something real, something that requires actual thought. Watch what happens. The silence people mistake for distance is actually the opposite. It means they're thinking about what you said seriously enough to not just throw out the first thing that comes to mind. They don't say things they don't mean, which means when they do say something, it means something. The anxious introvert. This is the type that gets mistaken for shyness the most, and it's important to understand why they're different. The anxious introvert doesn't avoid people because they prefer solitude. They avoid people because social situations trigger the specific fear, being judged, embarrassed, or getting it wrong. Before they walk into a room, their brain has already run 10 scenarios, most of them bad. Here's what makes this complicated. They often want to be there. They want friends. They want to connect. The anxiety isn't indifference. It's the opposite. They care too much about how it goes, which makes trying feel too risky. So they stay home, and then they feel alone, and that loneliness is what they're really hiding. Social anxiety and introversion are not the same thing. You can be an extrovert with social anxiety. You can be an introvert with none. But when both show up together, it compounds, and the result is someone who looks like they don't want people, when really, they just don't trust that it'll go well. The fix isn't to force themselves into every situation. It's to understand what specifically they're afraid of and deal with that directly. The restrained introvert. The restrained introvert takes longer to warm up, longer to respond, longer to trust. That pause before they answer, that's not hesitation, that's consideration. They don't speak before they've thought something through. In a world that rewards fast reactions, this type gets misread constantly. The pause looks like discomfort. The slowness looks like disinterest. The quiet looks like they have nothing to say. Wrong on all three. By the time they give you their opinion, they've thought about it more carefully than most people think about anything. By the time they trust you, that trust is real, not just comfort from repeated exposure. They're not withholding, they're deliberate. What they're really hiding is reliability. They say what they mean. They do what they say. They don't perform warmth, but when they show up for you, it's not performance either. Give them time. Don't fill their silences. What comes back is always worth waiting for. The highly sensitive introvert. This type doesn't just think more, they feel more. They process more. They pick up on things most people don't even notice. The tension in the room before anyone names it, a shift in someone's tone, the detail that doesn't quite add up. They caught it. They already caught it. Psychologist Elaine Aron identified this as a real neurological trait, the highly sensitive person, or HSP. About 15 to 20% of people have it. Their nervous systems process stimulation more deeply than average. That includes sensory input, emotional information, and social dynamics. A loud room isn't just unpleasant for them, it's genuinely draining. A harsh comment doesn't just sting, it stays. A good conversation doesn't just feel nice, it carries them for days. Everything lands harder. And that's the part most people never see, because highly sensitive introverts are often the most composed people in the room. They've learned to manage it. They've had to. What they're really hiding is the effort that management takes every single day in a world that is simply too loud for the way they're wired. They're not fragile. They're precise. There's a difference. The truth of all of them. Most introverts are a combination of these types. They shift depending on who they're with, where they are, what's going on in their life. But all four types share one thing. They are always processing more than they're showing. The social introvert is more connected than they appear. The thinking introvert is more engaged than they look. The anxious introvert is more willing than they let on. The restrained introvert is more certain than their silence suggests. The highly sensitive introvert is more aware than anyone around them realizes. Introversion isn't a wall, it's a filter, and what it filters out, noise, performance, surface, is exactly what most people never question. The introvert across from you isn't hard to know. They're just waiting to be known the right way. Now you know how. The empathetic introvert. This type feels what other people feel, not as a figure of speech, as an actual experience. Someone in the room is upset. The empathetic introvert picked it up the moment they walked in. They didn't need to be told. They didn't need obvious signs. They just know. That's the gift, and it's also the cost. Because absorbing other people's emotional states all day, every day, is exhausting in a way that's hard to explain to someone who doesn't experience it. They leave a difficult conversation and carry it home. They sit with someone else's pain long after that person has moved on. They give and give and give, and then need to disappear to recover. People often don't understand why. From the outside, the empathetic introvert seems warm, available, and easy to talk to, so the disappearing looks like rejection. It's not, it's recovery. What they're really hiding is how full they are, not full of their own thoughts, full of everyone else's emotions. They've absorbed the room. They need to put it down somewhere before they can function again. Solitude for this type isn't a preference, it's maintenance. The introverted leader. This one surprises people the most because we've been told that leadership is loud. The introverted leader doesn't lead by dominating the room. They lead by understanding it. They watch before they act. They listen before they speak. They make decisions carefully, not quickly. And when they speak, people listen because it doesn't happen constantly. Research by organizational psychologist Adam Grant found that introverted leaders consistently outperform extroverted ones when managing proactive teams full of people who take initiative. The reason is simple. Introverted leaders don't need to be the loudest voice. They create space for other people to think, which means better ideas actually make it to the surface. They're not passive, they're strategic.